And that's the message that I want to leave your audience with. All of you listening is take action, however that looks like for you, wherever in your journey you might be, whether that's, going to a meetup, whether it's listening to a podcast, whether it's reaching out to George and scheduling a call with him or with myself, whatever that might be, take action consistently. And it's only a matter of time. It might take, years to get there, right? Like it did for us. But I wholeheartedly believe that if you're consistently taking action and putting yourself out there, then success is inevitable.
Welcome to the Foundery, where leaders are forged daily. And now your host, George Roberts.
Welcome back, entrepreneurs. Today we welcome Daisy Serrano, founder of Make It Rain Capital. Welcome to the show, Daisy.
Hey, George, thank you for the invitation. I'm excited to share my story and hopefully inspire a few of your listeners today.
Awesome. Let's get started by telling our audience, who is Daisy Serrano?
Yeah. So who's Daisy Serrano? Born and raised in Southern California, a very small town, Mexican-American parents, and, had a very traditional upbringing, right? With my parents being immigrant parents, wanted us to go to college, right? Get a good education, get a good job. So went through, that route. And in the process, was trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, right? Quote unquote. Graduated with my undergrad and my master's, and even then hadn't quite found real estate. So it's definitely been quite a trajectory, right, in terms of the learning curve, and worked in education for about 10 years, in international education specifically. And then, here came Luke, who was my boyfriend at the time, now husband, and introduced me to this entire world of real estate syndication and multifamily and apartments. And I was not interested at all at the beginning, right? It was something that he was doing, and I was extremely supportive, but it was totally his thing. And the more I learned about the multifamily syndication space, the more I fell in love with the opportunity, right? And the possibility to build generational wealth, to be able to help retire my parents in the future, and, for us to build a life together around the business. And so sort of pivoted, from education, having been there for about 10 years, and, made the transition over to investing, right? We started investing passively, really got a taste of distributions and the power of, right, having that cash flow coming in, and really found within that, space, the opportunity for us to provide that opportunity to other people, right? So we kind of started this journey, and it pivoted to, what our passion is now, which is helping other people see that they can get started, right? That they can invest, and that you don't have to be a millionaire and you don't have to have millions of dollars in the bank to start investing, but you can start where you are and build from there.
Yeah, I love that. So many great lessons there. You don't have to be a millionaire. I think a lot of people think with real estate, particularly with commercial real estate, that you've just got to be loaded. Right. I always like to tell people, if you just add value, if you understand the process and you're willing to jump in and add value, this is something you can definitely do.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And, for me, it's just been an awesome journey, right? To be able to invest ourselves and experience that for ourselves. And in that process, see that there's so much opportunity for others to get involved as well, right? And so now we're just really on this journey to help other people get started, right? Or just learn more and know that this is something that's possible. And, this whole trajectory led us from Southern California to Austin, where we are now. We're local to Texas. And really the move was because we wanted to build a business and build our family around that business as well. And so everything just kept coming back to Texas for us, right? We'd been investing in Texas for about 4 years, and knew that if we wanted to be on the active side, be general partners and provide that opportunity for others, we wanted to be boots on the ground and be in our local market. So we didn't know absolutely anybody, but we picked up and moved, and it's been an amazing journey since.
Great. And always one of the questions I like to ask is, how did you get your spouse on board? So in this case, it was actually Luke. So Luke is the real estate guy, and you're in education, and you're sort of watching, and you kind of like what you see, and at some point you decide, hey, let's jump into it. So are there any lessons maybe learned along the way that you can think that some of us who may be on the other side of things, like maybe we're the one who's interested in real estate and think, wow, our husband or our wife would be just amazing. Now, how do you do that?
Yeah, for me, that's a great question. And for us, it really became about, for me, it became about getting exposure to what he was doing, right? We have this ritual every Sunday where we check in on our weeks, on our calendar, what's going on. And we ask how we can support each other. And in one of those conversations, I asked Luke how I could support him. And he said, come to a meetup with me, right? Come to a real estate meetup. And I said, okay, I'll go. I, was not very interested. It was too much information. They're talking about cap rates and, lending terms and so many things that I was not familiar with. And so what it really came down to for me, George, was seeing my why, right? Being able to realize my why, my big goals through real estate. Once I saw the opportunity to help retire my parents, to help mentor and inspire my community, right? To help, us have a family together and build a business around our family. So that way I didn't have to go back to a 9 to 5 right after we had children in the future. This was all still in the future, right? More so on the planning side. But it was really once we were able to construct the kind of life that we wanted to have in 10 years and how to get there, it really came back to real estate. And so really that's where, I decided and we decided together that this is what made the most sense for us. And who better than your spouse for us, right? Who better than each other to be able to support each other along the way.
Awesome. I know one of the best pieces of advice I've been given on this topic is just give them a job to do, like say, hey, you can help me with here. Now in this case it was you asking, hey, how can I support you? For me it was telling my wife, hey, I really would like some help with the meetup. I'd like you to come and support me. And she comes out there and she's got an amazing personality, and I think that she'd be great. She would be the capital raising wing of the business in the future. But awesome story. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, for us, it's really been about linking that why, right? Things that are most important to your partner to what you're doing. And once you're able to show that and link those two, I think it's a matter of time, right? As you mentioned.
Right. And I know that as a limited partner, you got over 400 units before you jumped in on the general partner side. Tell us, what are some of the lessons learned that and what would you recommend to other people who may be at the same stage? Maybe they are a limited partner, or maybe they're just questioning, hey, what is this multifamily thing and how do I get to own an apartment building?
Yeah, my biggest advice would be one, to get educated, right? To understand the investment type that you're interested in, whether that's multifamily apartments, whether that's, the retail space, whatever that, industrial space, whatever that might be, whatever you are interested in investing into. Learn some, foundation, some basics on that. And then from there on, I would say take some action and reach out to people that are active in the space, that are doing it, somebody that you resonate with. There's so many people that are out there, right? That you'll resonate with somebody. And so find somebody that you resonate with, that you trust, and learn from them, right? Who better than somebody who's out there active in the market, looking at deals all the time, to help you understand and educate yourself on that process. And then third, I would say take action, right? For me, it was a very scary process to invest that very first time, George, because it was the most money I'd ever saved in my life. And I knew how much work I'd put into, saving that capital, right? And so wiring that capital when it came down to it was very nerve-wracking for me, because even though I had done my homework, education, and, did as much as I could up front, it's still a leap of faith, I think, especially that very first one. And so once, those distributions started coming in, I kind of took a deep breath and said, okay, this is real, right? It's happening. I'm seeing the power of what's coming back now. And if I just continue doing this, however many more times, then that will give me the cash flow to be able to leave my job and do this full time for our family.
Yeah, awesome. So much in that answer. I know it is nerve-wracking. And one of the things that you face as you make the leap to being a sponsor is building those sorts of relationships where people do feel comfortable with that. And I know there are many things that people do to help people be comfortable even after, right? Sometimes you get a certificate saying that hey, you've invested in this. Some people like to show the deed. Obviously, there's no proof like the money. That first distribution is always very comforting to see. But do you have any lessons or anything you had to say about helping to get investors comfortable with this large transaction?
Yeah, I think a big part of it for me, and I always speak from my own experience, right? What's worked for me. And a big part of it was knowing the sponsors, meeting them in person, and having an actual relationship with them. And so, for us, it's very, very important to really understand, in terms of working with investors, right? What is their goal? Is this going to be the right opportunity for them? Because depending on what their goals are, it may or may not. And if it's not, then we'd rather direct them in the right direction, right? And connect them with the right person. So one, it's that, right? It's really understanding what is the big why, and what do they as an investor, what are they looking for? Are they looking for quarterly cash flow? Are they looking for a big lump sum at the end, right? And that's going to really tell us what kind of investment opportunities to present to them. And then, the other part of it for sure as well is maintaining that constant communication, right? So for us, whether that's continuing to, publish on the podcast and bring value, we have a newsletter. We're pretty active on social media as well, as you know. So it's the more that we can show ourselves and talk about what we're doing, people get to know you, even if it is digital. So a lot of times we've had listeners on the podcast, hey, I've gotten so much value from your show. I'd love to hear more about investment opportunities, right? And you just at that point have done so much for them already, and they feel that they know you at a very personal level. And so it just helps strengthen that relationship so much more.
I understand you just had your 100th episode of the Make It Rain Capital podcast.
Yes, it's been such an exciting journey, George. We never thought when we first started the podcast that it would get to 100 episodes. We were just really focused on trying to share the information that we, were learning ourselves with our family, our friends. And, we kept repeating a lot of the information, right, when we talked to people. And so we said, how can we, put that information in one place so that it's accessible for somebody who's interested in learning more? And, started probably just with our immediate family and friends, right? I don't know, 10, 20 people potentially. And now seeing that we're at 100 episodes and have had such amazing guests, some of those, have now become our mentors and, potential partners as well. And it's just been an incredible journey. So just feeling super grateful about, the opportunity to add value, right, to our listeners, and just to know that people are listening from all over the world. Once we see the downloads and where everybody's listening, it's, just to know that we're having a small impact on somebody else's life is so amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. And one of the questions I have as a podcaster myself, I believe you're going to be around episode number 50 of the Foundery. And that's a bit of a milestone in itself. We're near like getting to 100. Do you feel like it's something that's really helped you sort of get to that next stage and to become a general partner? And do you have any lessons for people who may be podcasters out there and who are trying to get the most out of that podcast?
1,000%, George. I mean, it's definitely been for us one of the most foundational platforms, right, that we've utilized in terms of, learning more and being able to share that information, but also just to help establish ourselves as thought leadership or thought leaders, right, in this space. And just the quality of conversations. We learn so much from our listeners. Everybody has such a different perspective. So we gain so much from it. Our listeners, we know because we hear from them as well. And we always try to incorporate, and kind of gauge, right, what people want to hear. So if somebody's looking for, advice regarding, from a CPA perspective, right, then we'll bring in a CPA. If they're looking for advice from a legal perspective, then we'll bring in someone that has that legal experience, right? So it's just been amazing in terms of the opportunities and doors that it's opened up for us, right? And then just being able to share our message. We are very adamant about creating more access for millennials to invest, right? People like us that are young, and there's no reason why you have to wait until you're older in life to get started. And so it's just helped us push our mission and our purpose forward in so many ways. So my advice for, fellow podcasters is consistency. I think that's the biggest thing that I can recommend, is, to maintain that consistent flow of episodes, whether it's every week, whether it's every 2 weeks, whether it's every month, whatever your schedule is. But that consistency, even when you feel like you don't have a lot of listeners at the beginning, right? Or you're getting started, or you're just so nervous and, it's difficult to speak into the mic at the beginning. It just gets so much easier the more you do it. And so consistency is really been key for us.
Awesome. Any tips for how to promote your podcast? You said you started out with maybe a nucleus of 10 or 20 hardcore listeners. How did you expand that?
Yeah, it's sort of been very organic for us. It's been through social media quite a bit, getting word out about what we're doing. We post our clips a couple times a week, right, about the guests that we bring in. Another big way to grow it has also been going on to other people's podcasts, right? So now being with you on the Foundery, right, you'll, post and talk about our podcast, once you do, and somebody else can maybe hear me on your podcast, George, and then go look for me, right? And that helps on that end as well. But just talking about it, with as many people as we can, spreading the word out about what we're doing, and then also engaging our listeners, right? So we'll have those surveys that we send out sometimes, and we'll say, what do you want to hear? Because we've found, right, that the more we can incorporate them into the content and the content creation, then the more value we can add, and then that continues to grow as well.
Awesome. I love that. Those surveys, they're great on LinkedIn. Great way to get a post with just a ton of engagement. So I think I'm definitely going to have to try that last example first. I would love to engage some listeners with some surveys. So yeah, you may hear those or may see those coming out soon. So then before we get to your deals and get into the sort of nuts and bolts of it and some of the deeper wisdom that you have for our audience, sounds like what you're doing is like 506B deals, right? Is that your focus?
That's correct. They're all 506B, which means it's sort of unofficially known as a friends and family syndication fund, right? So that means that you have to have a substantive pre-existing relationship with someone before they're able to invest with you, versus a 506C, which is, you can work with anybody as long as they're an accredited investor. So the 506B really lies at the heart of our purpose, because a lot of what we're doing is helping first-time investors, right? So sometimes first-time investors aren't necessarily accredited. They don't have that accreditation status to get started. So yes, for us, we usually do 506B offerings.
Nice. And then just to call that out, then obviously, if you want to be in one of Daisy's deals, you're going to have to reach out. And so what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, best way is on our website, makeItRainCapital.com. And there you can find the calendar to schedule a call with me. You can find my email, my contact information. And I recommend, even if you're not ready to invest, if you just want to learn more about the syndication space, about Central Texas, which is really where we focus, right? Or if you want to just learn more about my story and how I got started, I'm happy to, to talk to anybody and share as much as I can and be a resource on that end.
That's awesome. So let's really dive into that real estate story. I know you've told us some of the beginnings of that, but we basically took it up to the point where you and Luke, you acquire this 42 unit building. So why don't you tell us the story of that acquisition?
Sure. So we invested passively in 2 separate deals, about 445 doors, as you mentioned earlier. And that was our first taste of the passive side, right, as limited partners, just investing our capital with another group, with somebody else. And then, our first active deal as general partners was this 42 unit here in Austin, where we are now. And so it came from a relationship, actually somebody, going back to the importance of the podcast, right? It was somebody that we met actually through social media. They came onto our podcast. We went on to their podcast, started a relationship and, met in person when we were out here and just really strengthened that relationship. And we're offered this opportunity, right, to co-GP on this 42 unit deal. And it's been amazing just to get that experience on the asset management side and really be able to understand much more so the market dynamic, right, here in Austin. We've been here now living for about a year. So a big part of our time has been getting to know the submarket specifically. And so this deal has just given us so much exposure in terms of access to asset management, to understanding, the unit renovation locations, the submarket that we're focused on, right? Just access to reporting and so much information to be able to provide to our investors.
Cool. And then maybe just take a quick step back. So when you were a limited partner, do you feel like you learned a lot from those experiences? Would you recommend other people do that? Is it more of a confidence building thing, or do you feel like that's a great way to learn? Do you feel it was giving you something essential that you needed to get to that next level?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it really depends on everybody's journey, right? I know there's no right or right answer. I think for some people, they can just jump into the active side directly and hit the ground running. For me, because I was in such a different field prior to investing, I felt like I needed that exposure, right, to go through as a passive investor, really understand, what the expectation is of a passive investor, right, from the sponsor. What is the level of communication that I want, that I'm comfortable with? What are those return metrics that I'm really comfortable with and want to hit? There's so many things, right? And so for me, it was great to be a passive investor first, kind of dip my toes, but not be responsible for the management necessarily, right? Let somebody else who has the track record, the experience, and is physically located there. Because something I didn't mention is that we started investing from California. And so we were not physically in Central Texas when we were investing in Central Texas. And so it was really once we moved that then we were, a lot more knowledgeable on the market dynamics, metrics, and knew the actual submarkets that we then jumped onto the active side.
Exciting. So a lot of lessons there. And I got to say, I'm someone who did it, you could say, sort of backwards. I did get involved on the active side before I did any passive deals. And it certainly would have been a gentler on-ramp. And it certainly is a great way to meet some people. So yeah, a lot of great lessons there. Then, well, let's see. You did mention getting onto the asset management side. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your deal, like draw us into it. What are some of the things that you expected to find and maybe didn't find? Any pitfalls? How have you had to surmount those obstacles?
Yeah, certainly. So it's located in the north section of Austin, if you're familiar with the city at all. So very booming part of town. It's where the Domain is, which is a massive development. It's residential and commercial both, right? Where it's sort of like eat, play, live, right? Everything is there: theater, restaurants, living. It's really the new cool place in town to be. So a lot of technology companies in the area, very rising, right, in terms of the demand and that specific submarket where it's located. And so for us, it's just been, amazing to see, right, that we underwrote to a little bit under 1,100 for the rent increase, right? Or the rent, where the rent would stand post renovation. And we're achieving 12 to 1,300 in that submarket. So, it's just the boom that's continuing to go up and up here in this market. But it's also the property management, right? It's having the right property management in place. You mentioned some of the difficulties. There was a sister property that burned to the floor recently, and it's right next door to the 42 unit. And so that has been definitely a challenge, right? But also an opportunity because, we are now leased 100% at the 42 unit. And that's really because there were so many people that were moved from that property, unfortunately. And so a lot of the surrounding property, especially us being a sister property of the one that burned down, then people were, moved into our property, in terms of just moving the residents, giving them a place to be and, moving leases over. So it's been a difficult situation for sure, because that's, probably one of the worst things that you could ever want as a sponsor, right? But it's given us the opportunity to help, right? To get involved and to increase the occupancy dramatically.
Yeah, interesting. Wow. Got to say, with any property in the takeover, there's always so many surprises. So always exciting to share that journey and figure out exactly Wow.
We have a marketing coordinator who jumped on board last year, and she's been amazing to work with. She's actually in Florida, so local here to the US. I think a lot of times VAs are international. And she actually reached out to us because she wanted to be in the space. She wanted to learn. She wanted to take action. And so it's been a great journey, right? She's helping us on the marketing side, which, as you know, can be a full-time job in itself. And so that's allowed us really the opportunity to focus on the acquisition piece, right? Focus on the business model and being able to acquire and, of course, manage, right, the properties that we do have. And so in terms of the management piece, we have, ongoing conversations with regards to, our marketing calendar and what's going on. We usually plan for at least a month in advance. So that gives us an opportunity to not leave, things for last minute and really be more intentional about the kind of content that we want to put out on one end. But on the other end, we also meet every month for an hour and a half with her. And we just mentor her, right? We're looking at where are you in your journey? How can we help you? Who can we introduce you to? What event do we have coming up that we can invite you to? So you actually met her. Her name is Alex, right? When we met ourselves, George, at the conference in Florida. And so, we make her part of the company and we share our company values and our business plan with her. So she knows where we're heading in the next 3 and 5 and 10 years. And we want her to be a part of that as much as possible.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I did get to meet her, and really an amazing personality. Awesome to hear the whole backstory about how she's excited about real estate. And I mean, we met at a conference, and really putting out some awesome material, including, I think you have a Stoic Mondays. Is that right? Is that one of your series? Yeah.
We do. Yes, we do. And I have to say, with the holidays, the last couple of months, we've kind of lagged it a little bit on the social media content. But yeah, just again, right, as I said before, the consistency of putting out content, the Stoicism really came from a very personal place, right? For Luke and myself, we're both very interested in Stoicism, read a Stoic entry every morning as part of our morning ritual. And so we thought, what better than to integrate who we are into the message that we put out into the world versus trying to go figure out and create a message out of thin air.
Off the top of your head, do you have a favorite Stoic quote?
Ooh, probably the one that resonates the most is, for me, are the ones that talk about death, ironically enough, about the end. And amor fati is just, thinking to, if the end of your life was to come up, right, and maybe today, tomorrow, next week, next month was it, right, and you knew that you had that timeline, what would you do and how would you live your life? And I think the more I can try to live my life day by day by that message and be intentional about the work that I'm doing, about checking in with my family, right, because that's so important for me, about checking in with my husband and having a strong relationship. The more death is present in my mind, the more I feel like I live life more fully, which is very weird to think about in that sense, but it's what resonates with me.
Sure, that's very Stoic. It's like the memento mori, the idea that the end is soon, and so you have to live that life the best way you can. Yeah, Stoicism is something very important to me as well. I have some postings too in my Entrepreneurial Minute. I don't do it every Monday like you do, but every Friday I have some wisdom coming out. Sometimes it's Stoicism, sometimes it's Epictetus, or maybe Marcus Aurelius, or at times I featured other people like Paul Laurence Dunbar, but always something philosophical.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have a favorite quote yourself?
Yeah, I have so many. The one that calls to mind immediately is Epictetus about his friend wrote to him about his brother was angry with him, wouldn't forgive him. And he said, nothing even so simple as a bunch of figs comes about quickly. First, the tree has to be planted, it has to grow, it has to flower, it has to bear fruit. So I say, if you want a fig, you must be patient. And if something as simple as a fig takes time, how can you expect the human mind to come to fruition so quickly? So patience, yes, patience is an act.
Yes, patience and action together. I love that.
Mhm. Well, I feel that leads perfectly into one of my other favorite questions to ask, which is tell us about some of the lessons in leadership you've learned along the way.
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest things that I've learned, and not always the easy way, sometimes the hard way, right, is to be genuinely and authentically myself, right? That people resonate with who I am, what my message is and what I represent. And I think when I first started in this industry, I thought I had to fit a certain mold, right? Be, super buttoned up. And, it's just, I had this idea, right? Of what real estate was in my head. And I thought I had to be that persona to be in this space. And then, really realized along the way that being a leader is being myself, right? It's doing the right thing. It's caring about the people that I'm working with. And it's leading by example, right? Because you can say a million things, but people will really resonate with who you are and what you do. And so it's, maintaining, right, those stoic principles top of mind, and just principles in my life, right? What's most important to me, consistency with my word, right? If I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And always doing it from a place of care and love, right? Whether it's working with, investors, whether it's, the content that we're putting out, whether it's, the podcast, right, that we put out on a weekly basis. It's doing things from a place of value and contribution to the world, and of service to the world.
Yeah, awesome. I love those lessons. And I feel like those are things that maybe people learn a little later along the way. We all had this idea of, what we're supposed to look like. Obviously, in this business, it pays to be very professional, but in the end, people are going to go with people that they trust. And that's not going to happen if you're putting on airs.
Exactly. And people can sense that, right? I think when you're not being yourself and, trying to fit a mold, I think people can pick up on that pretty easily. I know that I can for sure. So it's just learning to love myself for who I am, and show up as that, and the people that are, going to be part of my tribe will resonate with that. And the people that don't won't. And that is a-okay, because there's so many wonderful people out there that they will resonate with somebody that, they feel comfortable with.
Right. Yeah, I love that idea of the tribe because, there are some people that are never going to come with you, right? And if you don't, you can't be bland. That's the other thing, right? I mean, if you're bland, you may not appeal to anybody, and you've just got to figure out who you are. And like you said, your tribe, they're the ones who are going to come along with you.
Exactly. Exactly.
So tell our audience, what are some of the books that have helped to forge you as a leader and as an entrepreneur?
Ooh, as an entrepreneur, I can say Traction has been life-changing for Luke and myself. Being able to create a business plan that looks 10 years into the future, and then, break it up right into, 3 years. What does that look like? In the next year, what does that look like? This quarter, what are those goals or rocks, as they mentioned in the book, right, that you need to accomplish to get to that goal? It's just a very structured way to run our business, and gives us a lot of clarity, in terms of the kind of people that we want to work with, what are the values that we want to align ourselves with, and what are the actual tactical steps to be able to accomplish the goals that we have set out for ourselves. So that, I would say, is on the entrepreneurial, more so business side. On the personal side, The Power of Habit, if I'm remembering the name correctly, it's been years since I read it. It's a little yellow book, if you're familiar with it. And it was just, for me, transformational in understanding that who I am and, the mistakes that I've made don't have to continue so into the future. And I am in control of my life, right? A lot of it is somewhat stoic in nature, but not necessarily, that I am in control of changing my habits, that there's a loop. And as long as you're able to identify, right, these different steps within that loop, then you can change anything about your life. And so I've done a lot of personal development work, and that's just helped me be a better person, understand myself better. That's helped me become a better wife, a better, future mom at some point, a better daughter, a better client, right, for the people that we work with, and investors and partners and everybody around me. So those are the two main ones, I would say: Traction and The Power of Habit.
Yeah, and if you hadn't done so, I was going to draw out the the Stoic Elements there, because it reminds me so much of Marcus Aurelius. Each morning, pretend that your life story is over and resolve to live the rest of your life properly. Yeah, that past doesn't have to be like a ball and chain that we drag around with us. Just literally pretend that it's over. I love that
Yeah.
mental exercise.
Yes, I love that. Stoicism just resonates in so many areas of our lives, right? So
Right.
I love talking about it, and I love meeting other people like you, George, that are,
Yes.
very inspired by it as well.
Yeah, I find it very healthy. And one of the things that I like to say is that I feel like it's exactly what our society needs right now. I think there are a lot of people who are maybe dwelling in negative emotion and
Mm,
maybe in the past, and not trying to draw too many I'm not trying to draw any direct parallels. I hope everybody interprets that differently in the best way possible. But again, I think that there's possibly too much negative emotion these days. I don't think people are really feeling the possibility that life has to offer, and really focusing on, just one more. Let's hit the audience with like the dichotomy of control, right? Only two things you
mhm.
can control: your thoughts and your actions, and to just focus on nothing else. And if you do that, it
Yes.
doesn't matter what's going on, right? It doesn't matter if there's a pandemic, it doesn't matter if the world goes crazy. If you've got that compass, then you know where you're headed.
Yes, I love that. It's really about, focusing on what's within your control and letting go of the rest of the world, right? All of the other expectations, everything that's external that you're not able to control, including maybe physically your body, right? You can control up to so much, but like you said, the two things you can control and can never be taken from you are your mental state, right? And your reaction to the world, to what happens around you. So those are the two things to hold on to. And as long as you do, the world can go into chaos and come back, and you'll still be strong internally.
Wow. Just wow. So tell us about one more bit of wisdom, if we could get from you. Tell us how you've had to grow or change to reach your current level of success.
Ooh, grow or change. I would say the biggest thing was taking responsibility about everything that happens to me in my life, right? Whether it's my relationships, whether it's our business, whether it's, me driving down the street and getting hit by a car. It's taking responsibility about absolutely everything, and knowing that there's something that I could have done to change that situation, or to, make it better. And the reason that that's really important for me, George, is because when you don't give up the power of what happens to you to others, then you are the only one responsible, right, for your life. And that means that if it's amazing, it's up to you, and it's thanks to you. If it's not amazing, it's up to you. So that means that you always have control and can always change something in your life to make it better. So I would say that's the biggest thing: taking responsibility about absolutely everything, and not blaming others or being a victim to the world around me.
Wow, I just love that so much. And I'm going to just resist the temptation to go into more stoicism. We have to keep this about real estate for our audience. But if I could just challenge you one more, could you send us out with a heartwarming story from your entrepreneurial journey? Maybe somebody you were able to help, or I see obviously you're someone who loves to mentor people.
Yeah, so I would say, I'm going to bring it back to, helping somebody invest for the first time. It's been just a beautiful journey, right? To be that light and that inspiration for somebody else. So I'll bring it back to Alex, who's our marketing coordinator. She reached out to us, I mentioned a little bit earlier, and she just wanted to be around us. She said, "Hey, Daisy and Luke, I'll work for free. I just want to be around you, learn, just be around like-minded people. This is where I want to go in the future. I don't know how to get there." And so for us, it was great to, see where she was, see the passion, right? See that she was putting in so much work and energy and effort into making that possible. And so we said, how can we help her and she help us, right? It has to be a give, and it has to be a win-win for everybody to stay in this for the long run, and be successful, right? And so we really looked at, okay, what does she need, right? She needs mentorship. We can definitely provide that, right? We're not anywhere near where we want to be, in the next 10 years, but we know enough to be able to help guide her. And the other piece of it is that she wanted to be a general partner. And so we said, okay, after a certain amount of working, a certain amount of time of working with us, then we'll share a certain amount of our GP equity with you to make you a GP, right? Because that's what she's looking for. It's that experience, that exposure, having the asset management calls, being on the leadership team for a call. And so it's been so rewarding, right, to see her grow and flourish and just run with, what she's doing. And she's doing amazing. But also know that we're a very small part of that journey, and that the mentorship and that support and checking in regularly is helping her so much on a personal level as well.
Right. I love that. And this is like the second time in 3 episodes that I want to recommend people go look up Edwin C. Barnes and Thomas Alva Edison. If you know the story, I think I see your head is already nodding. When people have that feeling like they'd be willing to risk it all on one roll of the wheel, that they often get what they're looking for. And that was supposedly Edison's response to Barnes when he said, I've come to go into business with you. But anyway, I think that rather than trying to play act that, definitely go and look that up. He had this hearty desire that he was going to do it. And that sort of determination is almost impossible to derail for long.
Yes, exactly. And that's the message that I want to leave your audience with. All of you listening is take action, however that looks like for you, wherever in your journey you might be, whether that's, going to a meetup, whether it's listening to a podcast, whether it's reaching out to George and scheduling a call with him or with myself, whatever that might be, take action consistently. And it's only a matter of time. It might take, years to get there, right? Like it did for us. But I wholeheartedly believe that if you're consistently taking action and putting yourself out there, then success is inevitable.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on our show today, Daisy.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast, and I'm excited to see you continue to grow and flourish as well, George.
Likewise.